Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. So, in continuing, Bulugh al-Maram, mentioned the benefits from the hadith of Bulugh al-Maram. We are on the chapter of impurities, cleansing impurities. And the first hadith of the chapter it mentions عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخمر تتخذ خلا قال لا أخرجه مسلم والترمذي وقال حسن صحيح.
Subhanallah, I just yesterday told ask myself about this question.
So, of the things that's mentioned is in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was asked about making vinegar out of alcohol. He said, no. No, it's prohibited. Now, of the things that's mentioned, the reason why the mentioning of khamr is in this hadith, why this has been mentioned in this chapter of cleansing najasa, is because the author, rahimahullah, was on the opinion that alcohol was najis, the alcohol was impure. But of the things that's mentioned, an-najasa is that which has been identified as being an impurity regarding from the Sharia. Al-aslu fil ashya'i at-tahara. However, the asl, the foundation of things is that they are pure, unless there's evidence that says it's impure. So if there's something that people are disputing whether it's impure or pure, the one who says it's pure is going to be the one who is most correct until evidence comes to prove that thing is impure, that thing is najis. فالذي يقول أنه طاهر فهو على الصواب حتى جاء الدليل على أنه نجس. And that's either by way of the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or by way of ijma' ahl al-ilm, by way of consensus of the people of knowledge. The same is the reality of food. If a person is eating something and he says it's halal and someone says no, it's haram, then the opinion of it being halal is the strongest opinion until evidence comes to say it's haram. The one who wants to say it's haram or prohibit it has to come with evidence.
Ustaz, prohibited بنا مكروه يعني ها؟
لا حرام. Now, when it mentions the hadith, it mentions khamar. Of the things Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions is that al-khamar laysa shay'un mu'ayyin, laysa bi shay'in mu'ayyin. It's not something specific, i.e. to say it's only alcohol that you drink. Rather, it's everything that intoxicates. Kullu ma askara, no matter what it is considered to be khamar. So, and that is haram by way of the Quran, the Sunnah, and ijma'. So you have those who say, like certain drugs like weed and other than this doesn't enter into al-khamr. It's khamr. So it also enters in the hadith of the prohibition of a person salah not being accepted for 40 days and the likes. And also the hadith that mentions لا يدخل الجنة مدمن الخمر, the one who is a mudmin, addicted to khamr. Now, of the thing that's mentioned, اختلف العلماء, the scholars have differed whether alcohol or khamr not saying alcohol alone, but khamr in itself, alcohol being a type of it, whether it is impure to the likeness of urine and feces, and other than that, which is from those things that are impure, or is it something that is pure but haram? I mentioned majority of the scholars are of the opinion that it's impure, and they base that on the ayah where Allah says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu innamal khamru wal maisiru wal ansabu wal azlamu rijsun min amali shaitan." In Surah Al-Ma'idah, it mentions khamr and maisir, gambling, and other than this is rijis, is impure and from the actions of shaitan. Now here it mentions القول الراجح أن الخمر ليس بنجس لكنه خبيث محرم بلا شك. So the thing that's mentioned, it said the strongest opinion, the most correct opinion is that alcohol is not impure. Alcohol is not impure. Are others able to hear on the live, or is it just you? You might need to turn up your volume. Because as it mentions here, now, our DXL, it's yours, you have to check yours. As for najasa doesn't mean something is haram, nor does it mean that something being haram means that it's najis, that it's impure.
حرام؟ كل حرام نجس؟
لا قلنا ليس كل شيء حراما نجس.
اي بس انت
نعم.
الجملة بالانجليزي شنو قلتها؟
Not everything that is haram is najis.
اي اوكي.
Also, evidence that this is not something that is haram is the fact that when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when alcohol and khamr became prohibited, he did not command them to wash their vessels. They weren't commanded to wash the vessels or utensils that contained khamr.
انا ما فهمت، قال لهم لا تغسلون
الأواني
لا تغسلون من الخمر ولا غسلوها؟
ما أمرهم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما أمرهم بغسل الأواني بعد تحريم الخمر.
اي
ولكن لما حرمت الحمر الأهلية, domesticated donkeys, when they were prohibited, أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بغسل الأواني منها, he commanded them to wash the utensils from them لأنها نجسة, because it's impure.
الحمر الأهلية وش الحمر الأهلية؟
donkeys, الحمر يعني ليس وحشية, الأهلية
ليش ياكلونها؟ غسل الأواني؟
لا حرام نجس.
ما فهمت ليش؟ شو دخل الأواني؟
اسمع كلامي. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما حرمت حمر الأهلية أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بغسل الأواني منها,
اللي أكلت فيها.
يعني على أي حال كان, يعني غسل الأواني هذا هو الأهم شيء, يعني ركز على الشاهد, يعني خلي بالك في أشياء أخرى. ولكن لما حرم الخمر لم يأمر بغسل الأواني, ولكن من حمر الأهلية لماذا؟ الشاهد لأنها نجسة, هذا هو خلاص. يعني الحمر الأهلية نجسة, خمر ليس بنجس, هذا هو الشاهد. واضح؟ نعم. The fact that they were commanded to wash their utensils from domesticated donkeys was evident that it was impure. As for alcohol, it wasn't the case. They weren't commanded to wash the utensils, showing that it was not impure. So again, was mentioned when it says rijis, which means impure, it doesn't mean it's impure in its essence. In that sense, it means it's impure as an action. As an action, عمليا من عمل الشيطان. ليس ذاتيا. It's not an impurity based on its essence. Also, the things that's mentioned, based on this, it's not permissible for a person to make vinegar from alcohol using things to treat it, to add things to it, to treat it, to make it become vinegar. But if it was a process that happened by itself, then they say there's no problem in that.
شلون يعني؟
يعني إذا أصبحت يعني تخللت بنفسها ليس بإضافة الشيء فهو يعني حلال وطاهرة.
يعني إذا خمر تحلل من نفسه وصار
نعم
فينيجر.
تخلل نعم.
أوكي. طبعا هذا ما ينطبق على المتاح في السوق الآن لأن كل مواد كيماوية بفعل فاعل ما يجوز ماكله.
حتى في خلاف كذلك في هذا.
أوكي.
As was mentioned, that prohibition is based on the madhab of Shafi'i madhab. This is not pure to be touched nor lawful to consume. However, they say the stronger opinion is that once it becomes vinegar, it is lawful,
لوفل يعني شنو؟
halal. So there's ikhtilaf, there's a strong difference of opinion regarding the difference of opinion regarding the alcohol when it becomes vinegar, if it is permitted or not. The next hadith it mentions وعنه يعني وعن أنس بن مالك again رضي الله عنه قال لما كان يوم خيبر أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أبا طلحة فنادى إن الله ورسوله ينهيانكم عن لحوم الحمر الأهلية فإنها رجس متفق عليه. So this is both in Bukhari and Muslim. It mentions that on the day of Khaybar, Allah's Messenger commanded Abu Talha to announce Allah and His Messenger have prohibited you from eating the flesh of the domesticated donkeys, for it is rijis, yani it's impure. So prior to this, it would have been a practice that they ate the meat of the donkey. The meat of the donkey, the domesticated donkey. And that was prohibited because the meat of it was impure, najis. And what's mentioned on the day of Khaybar, the battle of Khaybar, غنم الناس حمرا كثيرا, of the bounties that were abundant was the domesticated donkeys. وجعلوا يذبحونها ويطبخونها, so they began to slaughter the donkeys and cook them, prepare them to eat. فحرمها الله عز وجل في تلك الساعة قبل أن تنضج من القدور وأمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أبا طلحة أن ينادي بالناس إن الله ورسوله ينهيانكم عن لحوم الحمر الأهلية فإنها رجس. فكفئت القدور وغسلت منها وصارت خبيثة نجسة بعد أن كانت حلالا طاهرة. فالحمر الأهلية نجسة بولها نجس وروثها نجس ودمها نجس ولحمها نجس.
حليبها
يعني حتى نعم. So regarding this situation, when they gained a lot of donkeys as bounty from that day, war booty, they began to sacrifice, slaughter them, and then cook them. But it mentions within that moment, before they were even ready for eating, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited it. And the Prophet commanded Abu Talha to announce that, to declare it to them, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited the meat of the domesticated donkeys. So at that moment, the pots were empty, the pots were overturned, and from that day on, from that moment onwards, it was considered something to be vile and impure. The meat of it, the urine of it, the feces of it, the blood of it, everything of the donkey, the domesticated donkey is impure. As for his saliva and the like, then there's difference of the scholars who say some say it's impure and some say it's pure. Those who say it's impure, based on the general aspect of the hadith, they say it's impure. As for those who say it's pure, they say because the hadith the Prophet said about the cat, إنها ليست بنجس إنها من الطوافين عليكم والطوافات. And he mentioned those who say it's pure is because of the hadith, and we talk about the saliva. They said because the hadith when the Prophet said about the cat, because they are always around you, they are from the things that are not najis. And they say, but also the donkeys, the domesticated donkeys, are also from those things that are always around us. So to avoid them is something difficult. Now, so what's mentioned, so there was a concession regarding his saliva and his sweat. In that regard, we say everything else that comes from it is impure. Also, like his, yani things of his of other things. Like his teeth, and other than this, there's of those things that differ. But other than this, they say is impure. Also, what's mentioned, the apparent of his skin. So because the Prophet and the companions used to ride on top of donkeys, so the skin of the donkey, the apparent side of it, where his hair is also pure and not impure. And also includes the sweat of the donkey, because he said was known that the donkey sweats when it walks for a long period of time. It sweats. Ya'raq al-himar. So it's mentioned because of the fact the Prophet and the companions used to ride it, and they're not known to purify or clean themselves from it, and that shows that it was tahir. So based on that, at a period of time the domesticated donkey was something that was permitted to be eaten, but it became haram as it was identified as something to be impure. And it was something that people would take and eat and ride and drink the milk just like camel. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for His complete wisdom, prohibited it, and it became something that was haram, prohibited and impure.
أستاذ الحصان أيضا نفس الشيء نفس القاعدة؟
لا، هذا خاص بالحمر الأهلية.
يعني لا يجوز أكله.
يجوز أكل الحصان. يجوز.
لا يجوز حكم.
يجوز أكل الحصان. أي الذي يحرم لازم يأتي بدليل. هذا يذكر خاص يعني حمر أهلية، فهذا خاص. Also, we have the next hadith that mentions عن عمرو بن خارجة رضي الله عنه قال خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنى وهو على راحلته ولعابها يسيل على كتفي أخرجه أحمد والترمذي وصححه. Is it correct to say that this animal is an unfavorable animal? The donkey has a usage, and that is to transport things and to ride. But as for anything else, then la. So that if you hear the sound of the donkey, the braying of the donkey, then you have to seek refuge from shaitan. That's as we know from the sunnah. But it has its benefits. Now, and that's why we said not everything that is najis is haram in terms of to use and benefit from. As for what is haram of the donkey is eating it and drinking what comes from it and anything else like this. But as for using it as something to ride or transport goods, then it's permissible. Now, as the Prophet ﷺ would do so, and his companions. So in this next hadith, it mentions that the Prophet ﷺ was in Mina and he was delivering a sermon. And whilst he was mounted on top of his camel, and Amr was basically besides or underneath, and the saliva of the camel was falling on his shoulder. So what's mentioned here the khutbah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam الخطبة هي تذكير الناس بموعظة أو أحكام شرعية أو أمر بمعروف أو نهي عن منكر أو ما أشبه ذلك. The khutbah is a reminder for people with an admonishment or informing them of something of the legislation, any rulings, or commanding the good or forbidding the evil, or whatever is similar to that. We mentioned the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his khutbah were of three types. One, خطبة دائمة مستمرة مشروعة لا بد منها وهي خطبتنا الجمعة. You have the khutbah that is constant and legislated and it must be there, and that is the khutbah of Yawm al-Jum'ah, of Friday prayer. Also, it mentions لا تصح الجمعة إلا بخطبتين كما قال الفقهاء, that the khutbah of Jummah is not correct unless it comes with two sermons. And the Prophet ﷺ كان يجلس أو يفصل بينهما بالجلوس. The Prophet ﷺ used to separate between the two by sitting in between the two khutbahs. So the first khutbah, then you sit down, then you get up for the second khutbah. And the sitting is not meant to be long. It's a quick sitting, then you get up and you continue the second khutbah. Also was mentioned الخطبة عارضة لسبب شرعي. Sometimes there was a khutbah, a sermon given due to a legislated reason. Something occurred, so the Prophet ﷺ would give a khutbah. نعم, or صلاة خطبة الكسوف. Of the things that's mentioned, there's ikhtilaf between whether the khutbah at the Salat al-Kusuf, which is the eclipse prayer, which is khutbah is done after the prayer, whether this is something that is arid, and the Prophet did it at that time, or it's something that is mashru'. So they say it's something that is mashru', it should be, it's sunnah to be done after the salah, to give a reminder to the people. The third type of khutbah was based on khutb ليس لها أسباب غير شرعية أو لها أسباب غير شرعية. You have times when he gave a khutbah, an admonishment, and there was no any legislated reasoning behind it. So now, if there was Al-Hajjat al-Wada' is from this example. When there was not a legislated reasoning, the farewell khutbah was an example of this. But the shahid from the hadith is that the saliva of the camel is pure. The saliva of the camel is tahir, it's not najis. So when it fell on the shoulder of the sahabi who narrated the hadith, they didn't have to clean it. They didn't have to wash it. They were not commanded to wash it either. So that which is impure is mentioned. So the asl is tahara. The asl is that things are pure until evidence comes to state and show otherwise. So if there's evidence to say it's najis or it's haram, then khalas. But if there's no evidence, then it's taken to be upon the asl, the origin, and that is pure.
So again, أكرمك الله. So بالنسبة للحمار
It's not halal,
عفوا
it's tahir. نعم.
لأنه في مشقة أو طول.
في اختلاف في من يقول حرام في من يكون نجس في من يقول طاهر.
بس الجمل 100% طاهر.
طاهر نعم. And we'll stop there today, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll continue with matters to do with the najasat next week, بإذن ta'ala.
عندي سؤال أستاذ again الله
نعم.
يبارك بس للتأكيد. أكرم شو اسمه الخل اللي في السوق wine vinegar.
لا بأس. لا بأس.
بس في خلاف again. حد يقول حرام حد يقول حلال.
نعم في ولكن لا
بس
بأس.
بشكل عام
لا بأس.
لا بأس. إذا أنه ما يصير فينيجر قبل ما يتطبخ.